So you guys have probably heard me talk before about how I spend most of the year overseas with my wife and daughter. We are currently in Peru. We spent 4 years living in Brasilia and then 4 years living in Abu Dhabi. And my guest today, Tim Hubbard, he also spends most of the year in South America. Tim Hubbard is an international real estate investor. He's the host of the Short-Term Rental Riches podcast. So we wanted to have a talk today about, both geo arbitrage, living in one country while earning money from another, and the different currency arbitrage there, cost of living arbitrage. And he also does some real estate investing locally, both in Colombia and in Brazil, which is something that I don't do. So, Tim, yeah, I'm excited just to have a conversation with you about living abroad, investing both internationally and in the US, and how that has really helped you financially.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. And it's a really interesting topic. It's one that changes all the time. And of course, depending on where we live, there's a whole bunch of other dynamics. Every country's different, right? And when we talk about living internationally, one of the big differences is the currency, most of the time, unless you're in a place like Panama that also accepts dollars.
Right.
And so the US dollar is at a historical high over, it's really, really high. When I came down to Colombia for the first time, just to give a quick example, I think back in 2015, $1 was worth around 2,700 pesos, and now it's worth 4,400 pesos. And so just from a currency arbitrage, if we're earning dollars, we have a lot of opportunity to live in a lot of really cool places at a fraction of the cost. And then of course that translates into investing too. If we decide to invest in some of these foreign places, which definitely has its challenges, don't get me wrong, like every country's way different, but if we're investing in another country using dollars that we've earned in the US, we can find some really good investments, or we can create some really good deals by arbitraging the currency. So I guess not to mention just the cost of living is much lower too. And you know this, Brian, having lived in South America for a while. And again, depends on where you're at. Like Brazil, this particular city that I live in versus the city in Colombia, I find to be about 30% more expensive. But both cities are less expensive than the US. And the quality of life, I think, is incredible. And so there's a lot of great places out there. If we're earning dollars, we have a lot of opportunity in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and that's been something that has really helped my own family and our personal finances, since we've been abroad. We've been abroad for almost 10 years now. But yeah, I mean, all of my income is based in the US. I earn money in US dollars. Spark Rental is a US business. We mostly service Americans in our co-investing club where we meet and we go in on different investments together every month. So, but I live in Peru at the moment. So I'm earning in US dollars, but I'm paying locally in Peruvian soles. So, a quick illustration of that. I have a 3 bedroom, two full bath apartment overlooking the Pacific Ocean. We're on the 13th floor of an apartment building, 180-degree view of the Pacific Ocean. And it's overlooking this beautiful park that sits right in between us and the ocean. And I mean, it's just incredible. The apartment itself is, nothing special. It's a mediocre urban apartment with a, $10 million view, and our rent is 1,300 US dollars a month, or the equivalent of, which we don't even pay because my wife's employer pays our rent. I mean, so, but you could never find, an oceanfront apartment like that, you know, anywhere in the US, much less a major city of 11 million people like where we live now. Just to illustrate that cost of living differential between the US and the rest of the world. You touched on something I wanted to just learn a little bit more about. You hinted at some of your investments in both Colombia and in Brazil. And I'm just curious about, some of the investments that you've made, the real estate investments that you've made in some of these South American countries, and how you've been able to arbitrage those investments while earning US dollars, and just what that's looked like for you.
Yeah, sure. So in Brazil, we bought a condo. So it's in a high-rise building, also near the ocean, at a price 200, I think we paid about 200,000, and it costs about 75,000 to completely renovate it. But this is like 50 yards from the ocean. It's an amazing part of town. It's super safe. And I've been focusing a lot over the last decade in short-term rentals. And so this property is also ideal for a short-term rental. And so this particular city is very touristy. Just to give you an idea, in December, around New Year's, the city generally has around 250,000 people, but around New Year's, it goes to over 1 million people.
Wow.
And so the prices, it's very seasonal. It does really well as a short-term rental. The dollar in comparison with the Brazilian real is also at a historic high. And so the property is the same, right? But when our currency changes, earning US dollars, it's basically like we're getting a discount on real property. And so that one's worked out really well. Of course, the regulations and the legal side of things and all of that is a lot more challenging, I would say, in foreign countries. You definitely want to make sure you have someone that speaks the foreign language, so you understand what you're getting into. But I think there are a lot of good opportunities. In Colombia, currently building a small resort type style property. It's actually within the city, but it's up on the mountainside. So it's sort of over a hectare or 2 acres, a little over 2 acres. And again, really good opportunity. We're basically paying for construction. We're using our US dollars to convert to Colombian pesos, which again is at a historic high. So we're getting to build a property for much cheaper than we could ever build anything in the US. And we're also focused on renting to tourists who are going to be coming down and paying in dollars. And so, yeah, there can be a lot of good opportunities. We definitely have to run the numbers and make sure that things are making sense. One of the really big challenges with being a foreigner and investing in foreign countries is that you usually don't have loan options available to you. If you are or you have been investing in the US, one way is to potentially take equity out of other properties, cash out refinance, for example, and you could use that across borders. But so there's definitely challenges, but there's a lot of opportunity. And it also provides a lot of diversification too, Brian. That was one of the reasons I originally started exploring and investing outside the US, was so that I didn't have all my eggs in one basket, for example. And by investing in some of these places, you can also get residency and citizenship. And so it provides some really good sort of plan B, plan C options.
I love that you brought that up. That's such a good point, that so many countries around the world do offer residency or citizenship by investment, and in particular with real estate investment. So you can go out and buy a short-term rental property or a long-term rental property, or sometimes you can invest in other things too, like a local fund or whatever. But yeah, and then get long-term citizen residency or citizenship potentially in some of these countries. My wife and I have long-term residency in Brazil still from when we lived there. I think it's good through 2030 actually. So it's pretty long term. And our daughter was born there, so she's actually a Brazilian citizen for life.
That's awesome.
She has a passport. It's awesome. So yeah, that's a wonderful point. And I love the point about diversification. That is one of our core values in our co-investing club, is diversifying, not just geographically, but also type of property and operator and timeline for the investment, all that stuff. And being able to invest overseas just adds a whole nother dimension to that. So I love that. Tim, in 30 seconds or less, how do you help people, and how can people connect with you if they want to take you up on that help?
Yeah, so we help people maximize the revenue with their short-term rentals or their small boutique properties. We're in nearly 20 cities, 6 different countries. The way we do this is really the same around the world. So it's the same with my properties as it would be for yours. So we specialize in that. I have a podcast called Short-Term Rental Riches. Been going for 5 years now, and you can find all of our episodes at strriches.com, or you can find us on all the different platforms as well.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. And guys, if you enjoy these quick, focused conversations that we have, please rate and review the show. It makes a world of difference to us. And on that note, we'll catch you on the flip side. Want the cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits of real estate without becoming a landlord? You've heard of REITs and real estate crowdfunding, but you probably don't know much about 5 other ways to invest passively in real estate. So we put together a free video course for you to show you how to consistently earn 15% plus returns from 5 lesser known hands-off ways to invest in real estate. And even more importantly, we'll keep risk front and center in that whole discussion, because really, what's the point of investing for high returns if you also take on high risk, right? So visit sparkrental.com/free to take our free course. Each video is snackable at 10 to 15 minutes long, and the entire course takes less time than watching a movie. Looking forward to chatting with you from within the course.